Hi guys, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Nuggets News. Well, what a huge week it's been. We've got so many macro headlines and all the crypto news to get through, but I did want to start off with a bit of a thank you to you all. We've passed 70,000 subscribers, 1,320 premium members in our Facebook group now, and there's a lot of changes and upgrades coming in the next few weeks with that app coming out and moving to a portal. For those of you that don't like Facebook, we've put on 2 new customer support staff to look after you all, and that does allow for better content, better support for you guys, and the latest research report is now out. So this is the research we do every month on some of the best coins out there, and this will always include the coins that I have added to my portfolio personally, but we want to give you a free sample as well. So if you head over to the Nuggets News Twitter, you'll find the November report free to download for everyone. And if you like those, this is just a taste of some of the extra research and reports you get by becoming a premium member. Now, a bit of housekeeping. FTX, the exchange where I do all my trading, are rebalancing all those indexes. So something to be mindful of if you are a trader on the 27th of March, and there'll be more information to come there. I finally got around to doing that tutorial for you guys on Bitcoin options as well as their prediction markets. So this week we saw Mike Bloomberg drop out of the race and that token goes down to 0. So well done, those of you that shorted that. And I know a lot of you want to make bets on the future price of Bitcoin, which options allow you to do. So that tutorial is all time-stamped if you want to learn about options and those prediction markets. And there's that link down below to get you a double discount on fees over at FTX. Okay, so let's get into the local news first. Martin and I did a deep dive. Look, we do appreciate you guys trying to share this video around because as we thought, the YouTube algorithm has suppressed this because of some of the topics that we spoke about in the video. So this normally gets 20 or 30,000 views in the first couple of days. Yeah, really appreciate if you guys can share that one around with friends and family. All right, so the Reserve Bank have cut interest rates. It was only 25 basis points, and we didn't know that the US and Canada, other countries, were going to go twice as big with their 50 basis point cuts. So this really does make it look like Australia's behind the 8 ball again already. And just as this headline says, and as we've been saying, there's only so much left that the Reserve Bank can do, and it's up to fiscal policy and our government to really save us from what lies ahead. It's also affecting savers. We know that they're getting basically nothing for having their money in the bank, and they're trying to ban cash as we're heading towards these negative interest rates. Alan Jones spoke about this as well. So it's kind of creeping into the mainstream media with people finally putting the puzzle pieces together and seeing that this is all coming. And we've also seen the smaller neobanks have to stop deposits because they had these higher interest savings accounts. So when the Reserve Bank cuts rates on them, they can't just keep giving out these higher rates to all their customers. They're going to start losing money. So look, it does affect everyone. It weakens the banks, the lower rates go, particularly once they get negative. And the last thing we need at the moment is a weaker banking system. Now, one of the things that I've started hearing this week, and I got lots of messages about this, and it was great to see the Bitcoinist cover this in an article, was the number of people that went to withdraw cash or even just transfer funds online. They got these pop-ups or these questions that if they were in the branch in person about what are you using the money for. You need to give us an invoice for what you'll be using this money for. So, no longer is cash even anonymous these days, with banks refusing to give customers their money. Now, I'm not saying this is a new law or it's going to happen to everyone, or it might not be every bank, but I'm just saying that this has happened to multiple people, and I got plenty of messages after I tweeted this from precious metals dealers and other businesses that have run into this problem as well. So they're doing everything they can to stop people getting their money out of the banks because it weakens the banking system. All right, so talking about the coronavirus now, I did predict last week we're going to see more and more cases in Australia. It was going to get worse around the world, before it's going to get better. And this is really frustrating. You guys know I live down here in Tassie, and we've got a Hobart man who tested positive and he was told to go home, but he went and worked shifts at Hotel Grand Chancellor, which is one of the biggest hotels. So who knows how many people he could have, came in contact with or infected, and now they're trying to chase up those individuals as well. And this follows earlier on in the week where we had a man in Launceston who was told to self-isolate but went to the supermarket. So I'm just fearful that Australia, the US, a lot of countries around the world we're not really aware of how many cases and carriers are in the general public, particularly in those countries that aren't doing the testing. So it's kind of this silent period. I think it's a false sense of security, and we are going to see cases in the hundreds next week and the thousands the week after that. Look, if you don't agree with me, that's fine, but I'm just telling you as a health professional what I think is mathematically going to happen in the next few weeks. Now, the Morrison government have changed their tune from "this is nothing to worry about" to declaring a pandemic, and now they're preparing for hundreds of thousands of cases. So this isn't just me now, this is the government as well that are saying this. Now, people have gone a little bit crazy, running out of toilet paper. If you want to get prepared, you need your medical supplies, your food, water before you need toilet paper, I would have thought. But people have gone a little bit crazy there with the TP. One man actually getting tasered. We've seen fights break out. So, look, just keep your cool, guys. I know plenty of you are already prepared in advance. I spoke about this a few weeks ago. It's not a Mad Max that we're preparing for. It's just having a little bit in case things do get bad in terms of the supply chains. It's better be prepared than being too late. Now, hand sanitizer is sold out at pharmacies around Australia. I put this out on Twitter and my personal Facebook. If you guys want to follow some of the posts I do there, look, you can make your own. Soap and water works just as well if you give it a good scrub. The masks, just remember that you've got to put those on properly and take them off properly so you're not touching your hands where all those virus particles are. So there's lots of things where I see on social media people saying this is good or this or that doesn't work. As always, the truth's in the middle, and you've got to know how to use these things. So just take your time and do a bit of reading, and there's plenty of ways you can look after yourself. And most people aren't going to get sick or show any symptoms, as I've said in previous episodes. The real worry is what's happening with all the global supply chains and how we have to try and contain it. So India have really stopped shipping a lot of these medications, some of which there aren't a lot of substitutes for, key antibiotics and so on. A lot of those medications are now made in China, and they're stopping shipping to the US. So this is a big wake-up call for globalization and how dependent we've come on these cheap labor countries. Now, these countries that are getting hit are going to have just the same issues as Western nations, where businesses aren't able to pay their bills. We've seen India's fourth largest bank being bailed out now, and withdrawal limits of $680 imposed. So once again, you can't get access to your own money. And this is just hours after India rejected that bill. So finally, some good news there. We'll get to that in just a second, but maybe India needs crypto more than ever. China car sales down 80%. We've heard stats like TV production down 90+%. The China PMI crashed to the lowest level on record. Not nice stats, and we know that Australia is dependent on China. Now, all these other countries are starting to have to look after themselves. It's no real surprise here where we've seen Putin launch war on the US shale industry. So if you don't know, shale oil is the fracking, and it's slightly higher cost to make. So the more that these other countries can pump out oil, from the ground by the barrel, it puts pressure on these other high cost producers out there as well. So Saudis, as well as Russia now, planning a big oil output hike. So now that the price of oil has collapsed because the economy slowed down, we're not going to be using as much oil, these countries, to get the same amount of revenue, have to pump out more barrels of oil because the price per barrel is lower. So once again, all these nice handshake agreements like OPEC, it really goes out the window once countries have to start protecting themselves. And look, these studies show that a fracking ban would wreak havoc on the US economy. They've really become dependent. They've become, oil independent in terms of not having to import as much oil anymore, actually becoming a net exporter. So a lot of these climate concerns are coming into play now with investing, that green sort of theme that I've continued to speak about. Whether or not you agree with it, it's just a fact that that's how investors are positioning themselves. So this is going to put pressure on all these companies that have junk bonds and have issued debt. And if fracking goes down, that's a big section of the US energy sector that's going to hurt the US economy. All right, so over to Iran. This coronavirus is straining healthcare systems. They've had to temporarily free 54,000 prisoners, but just, they can't isolate them all in these jails and these overpopulated areas. Up to 40% of Tehran's population to be infected within 2 weeks, says an Iranian health official. So this is the capital there. Unfortunately, these developing nations that don't have as good a healthcare system, it is a lot harder for the communication, the containment, the sanitation, the prevention, and it's so contagious that these are numbers that are possibly going to be reality. And we are going to learn a lot, I'm telling you right now, in the next week or two, even the next month, until we start testing widely and we see how this spreads through the population. And we're going to look back and say that, yeah, it was silently spreading during those weeks where the number of cases hasn't necessarily, continued to explode. It's kind of just creeping higher still. Now, Italy has had to place their entire Milan region under quarantine. Just before I went live to do this video, we've seen some of the cities, New York, go into complete lockdown and state of emergency declared. So a lot of people still aren't taking this seriously, but it's right under your nose. Now, this is very worrying in terms of Italy, who is a trusted source for information, saying that 10% of all positive patients ended up in ICU. So these intensive care units in hospitals have very few beds. You might have, let's say 5% of all beds might be ICU capable. So these people that require a lot of attention. Now, if we have these ICU wards full of coronavirus victims, that obviously puts a strain on everyone else that requires emergency medical attention and the staff. So hopefully this number isn't accurate, but this is what they're warning out of Italy from the officials. So fingers crossed it's not that bad in every country. So the response from all our leaders has been monetary stimulus. As you know, I've been saying that this isn't something that money can really combat, this virus. But anyway, the IMF have announced $50 billion of aid for a lot of these developing nations. We've seen the Federal Reserve go to the extreme of actually quarantining dollars from Asia over fears of infection. Now, I think this is one of those sort of Stone Age things we'll look back and laugh that our kids will tell us, you're still using paper money that had germs on it. All this stuff I think is really good for cryptocurrency or digital money at least. But this is something that they are using as an excuse possibly to phase out cash, which I spoke about in previous episodes as well. All right, so the US has tested fewer than 6,000 virus samples. They're talking about these million tests that are going to be available soon, but the reality is they've only tested 6,000. And you see these doctors, these YouTube videos, they're begging to test their patients. They can't get a diagnosis, and these people are going out in public, and that's where my fear comes from, that it is really just spreading throughout the public. Look, Donald Trump wants the Federal Reserve to cut interest rates and stimulate more. He said this after they'd just done an emergency cut of 50 basis points. And as you can see here, these are the previous occasions where the Fed cut 50 basis points or more. So Lehman Brothers collapse, the stock market crash, when the subprime mortgage crisis first hit, after 9/11, a weak economy back in 2001, just after the tech bubble and the tech bubble itself there. So look, that really scared the markets. Stocks continued lower this week. This is the response: print money, give it to banks, drop rates to zero or negative. We've tried all this. Hong Kong are trying to print money and give it to the public. I think Australia are going to try something similar. Now, that did work okay here, but we had a lot of other things that dragged us through last time and avoided that recession. So I'm not sure if it's going to work as well this time with people in far more debt. But this is next on the list: talk of printing out money to buy up stocks directly. So this is one of the Boston Fed officials coming out and saying that we actually may have to adjust even the laws to allow the Federal Reserve to print money to buy stocks, because we can't let the price of the stocks go down. We can't let the stock market crash. And I don't know how a number on the screen fixes anything in the real economy. But anyway, apparently that's the most important thing to the Federal Reserve, who should be looking after the general population. Right, despite all that, we got a actually pretty good jobs number for the February payrolls, but this was before a lot of the bad data hit and supply chains started to slow down, so I'm not giving that too much attention. But with this rush to bonds at an unprecedented level, we've now got rumors that there's been a big fund or a big bank possibly going under, or what do the banks know that we don't know? This is, again, the repo markets have spiked. So why aren't the banks lending to each other? What do they know that we don't? And just when everyone was thinking that these repo terms were getting better, we had a hugely oversubscribed repo, to the tune of $100 billion, more than what the Fed was initially willing to lend. Now, with all this happening, we've got CEOs leaving businesses at record pace, and now we've got Jamie Dimon having a heart attack, an emergency heart surgery. So, look, we don't wish ill health on anyone, but you have to ask, is this related? The stress of everything that's going on, all the CEOs of all the banks are under tremendous pressure right now, and we know that JP Morgan is the most powerful bank in the world with their derivatives, and when they stop lending into the repo market, that's basically when it froze up. So another anti-crypto bank, Wells Fargo, once again involved in a $1 billion scandal. So while everyone's busy trying to crack down on crypto, these $1 billion scandals and these slap on the wrist for the big banks are in the headlines every week. And the last thing I want to mention here about the stock market was that put-call ratio and how complacent people had been, the amount of short interest there. And the title of this article is "People Are going to Wish That You Still Had Short Sellers." Now, when I'm shorting and betting the market's going to go down and then it has a crash, to close my position, I buy the stock back to put it from a negative, back into a flat, a neutral position to close my short. So the fact that we've had such a record low level of people shorting means that is something that's not going to come into the market, to push it up. But, there's not that extra bit of buying from the shorters that are closing their positions. So just something else to be mindful of. Now, it wasn't all doom and gloom. Gold nearly crossed $2,600 an ounce on Friday night. Didn't quite get there. Huge numbers there. The gold shares in Australia have been doing really well. The spread between the junk bonds and that high yield debt and the US Treasuries, the really safe bonds, is hitting extreme levels. So people no longer want those junk bonds because businesses are going to fail. They want that US Treasury, and that's why we saw the yield on those Treasury bonds come right down, because everyone wants to buy them so the government can offer a less yield. Now, if you can trade all this and put all these pieces together, this chart's a little bit messy, but all you have to realize is that orange is Bitcoin, gold is gold, and black is the bonds, and blue is the stocks. And ever since we had these coordinated global announcements from central banks that they were going to print money and save us, the stocks sort of ran up in anticipation of it. But ever since then, stocks have sold off and crept lower. Money has been flowing into gold, Bitcoin, and bonds, and that was really positive. Now, we'll look at the charts a bit later, and Bitcoin has sold off. So it's just a little bit frustrating that every time I think it's doing the right thing, it does the opposite. And look, whether or not that's good, that's uncorrelated, it's really, really important time for Bitcoin right now. So if you want to trade any of this, it's all possible on eToro. You've got your TLT, US Treasury bond market funds. If you want to short the junk bonds, there's the junk bond market ETF. As I had up before, something like Netflix, people are going to stay at home and watch movies if they can't go to work. And we've actually seen Netflix has been trending higher all year when a lot of these other stocks have been selling off. So be smart about it. Think about how you want to position yourselves. Do you want to short the US stock market after this dead cat bounce that I think we're personally in? I've done the tutorial on how to do all that. Even if you start that practice account, I really think this volatility should be exciting a lot of you that are traders. And we have extended that $100 giveaway until the end of the month if you sign up with that link down below. Okay, so into the crypto news. Indian Supreme Court ruling sees exchanges resume business. So it got overthrown, the move to try and make crypto illegal in India. And this is fantastic news for Wazir X. We had their CEO, Nishkal Shetty, on last year, and that was one of my top interviews for 2019. It got very few views, but I said, guys, watch this interview. This guy is switched on. He was Forbes top 30 under 30. He's launched his exchange. Binance are behind them as well. And this token is now up 1,000%. So well done to you guys that watched that interview, that took part in that IEO. Always great when you guys are out there doing your research as well. And anything that goes up 1,000% in a month, happy times. Be sure to take some profits. All right, so it's not just India. We've got South Korea Parliament legitimizing crypto as a legal entity. It's all these fine wordings that are slightly different in a variety of countries. But Germany was next, recognizing Bitcoin as a legal financial instrument. We had that Australian judge report so as well last week. We've now got a French court recognizing Bitcoin as money. So this is just so great to see in the background. Well, we've got Bank of England execs coming out and saying that central bank digital currencies themselves might be single points of failure. So slowly and surely, those leaders are realizing that the point of crypto, what makes it strong, is the fact that it is decentralized. So it's just another form of digital money that you guys already have. If you're going to create these central bank digital currencies, they're not true cryptocurrencies at all. Now, Samsung are also targeting this payments sector in the EU with a blockchain-based system for banks. It's just so much competition out there. I say it every week, and you guys listened to that interview I did with Sam I Am, and one of the things that he did agree was that XRP do have stiff competition from central bank digital currencies and all these other payment providers. And this is what kind of worries me a bit, is that they keep changing their tune. So now Ripple are saying that stable coins can be created on XRP. But for years they've been saying, XRP is providing the liquidity and price volatility doesn't matter because you send XRP from A to B so quickly and then it gets sold. So I don't know why they'd be encouraging stable coins if they're trying to do payments in XRP. But let me know in the comments below, why you need that if you're an XRP hodler. Okay, so Litecoin's Mimblewimble privacy testnet looks like it is going to be ready to go in the next few coming months, which is fantastic news for privacy in general and Litecoin holders. We've got Bitcoin Cash clients looking to fundraise after all those issues with the developer tax. So Jimmy Song and I spoke about that in the recent interview if you want more information. But it looks like they're going for another route to try and fund some projects and development on Bitcoin Cash there. IOTA founder looks like he's going to pay everyone back out of his own pocket. So that was a $2 million expense. They had the network down for 3 weeks, and David is going to pay everyone back. If you've got the IOTA wallet, I do believe you need to head over to the website and download the latest version, and be careful. There's going to be scams floating around, so be sure to go to the official website. Binance, and speaking of taking over networks, we saw Justin Sun. I guess this wasn't fair play. So he got Binance, Poloniex, Huobi, all the big players to help regain control of the Steem network after he and Tron acquired it or partnered with Steem, whatever you want to call it. And this did not go down well. So Steem was meant to be a decentralized network for the people. CZ lady came out and said that, Justin, that probably wasn't the right thing to do, a learning experience. I think Binance have stopped staking or voting, a similar network with the block producers there to EOS and whatnot. But either way, the community wins out, and I don't think Justin Sun comes off too well after that yet again. So this is a fantastic example of the need for decentralized governance, and this is why I'm so bullish on Aragon. This is one we've covered in our fundamentals in the group. If you want to have a search for Aragon or ANT, you'll find my posts about this one. But Tim Draper invested $1 million, and it's always a sign that you're on the right path when you've been accumulating a position in this one. I did and added to my portfolio, and then someone comes along and buys $1 million worth, and Tim's already up 40% on that investment. So look, not a bad couple of weeks work there, and good stuff. I think we're going to be reading more about Aragon going forward. Chainlink continues their role of good news week over week, integrating with the real world, DeFi and other blockchains as well. Trying to get Sergey on. I still haven't booked that. If you've got any links to the Chainlink community, try and help set that one up for me. Another little small project that I covered since 2017 was INS World. They've rebranded to Insular, and another sector that we love is uranium. So great to see those two join forces, supply chain, commodity trading and settlement. These guys started off in the world of grocery and supply chains, and it looks like they're pivoting as well or expanding into the uranium and energy sector commodities. So I always love stuff like that, and seeing those real world applications. They've recently changed to mainnet as well. So look, good work to the team over at Insular there. Speaking of real-world adoption, we've got the big boys, Microsoft, Ernst & Young, Consensus, all touting this new way for the big businesses and corporations to use the public Ethereum chain. Again, launching more tools this week for these businesses to build on Ethereum, which is absolutely fantastic to see. We've got Ethereum program proof of work debate. It looks like it does have a resolution at this stage. Anthony and I will talk about that in more detail in this week's Ethereum monthly update. a fantastic interview with Vitalik and Joe Lubin. So what lies ahead for Ethereum in 2020 and beyond? Definitely give this one a listen. I've got a huge Ethereum episode coming up soon with months of research coming into it about Ethereum and Ethereum 2.0. So I know you guys will be looking forward to that one. The final pieces of Bitcoin news here, we've got a cross-chain bridge allowing Bitcoin's liquidity to the DeFi space. So once again, Kyber, their name keeps popping up. That one's now at 400% since we covered for members. And Bancor as well, looking to integrate cross-chain there. HTC have got their 5G router, which can host a full Bitcoin node. This is privacy focused as well, so not relying on anyone else to broadcast your Bitcoin transactions. Really cool to see, and I'd love to do a demo of that if anyone works at HTC. Do a tutorial, because this looks very, very cool, and I'm always up for easier ways to run your own Bitcoin node. I'm sure you guys are too. The final piece here is inheritance. So Casa, another company that run Bitcoin nodes and mining software, Lightning Network software, they're coming out with this inheritance system. So once you pass away, a little bit like a will, they'll help recover your keys along with lawyers and multi-sig technology and whatnot. So again, one that I'll cover in future, have them on the show, but good to see all these real world problems of the crypto space being solved as we head into that next market cycle. All right, before we look at the TA, big thanks to New Brighton Capital. I know plenty of you are very happy that you've been looking after your own super on a fortnight like we've just had, with stocks down, gold and silver holding up well. Crypto's held up relatively well. It's been on a huge run this year. You can sort all that out yourself in your self-made super fund. Check out that free consultation. Take advantage of it. Nuggets News subscribers get a discount, and our members, like always, get a double discount there. Okay, so Bitcoin chart. This is the daily chart at the moment. I think that we are possibly forming a little bear flag here, and we did have quite a big move just after the daily close today. A bit of a fake out. We had a lot of these ascending triangles forming, and I did think we were going to break out, but that was very quickly smacked down, and 9,200 was the key level that we were watching. So on that daily time frame now, it really comes about this key level, and from our Bollinger Bands, we know that when we're outside them, we tend to mean revert, but not good that we have people waiting here at the 20 moving average in the middle of the Bollinger Band to smack that back down. So possibly a move lower, and we'd be eyeing off around 7,800 as that next stop. And the reality is, if stocks get hit really hard again next week and we see coronavirus cases increase, if Bitcoin wants to continue to act in log step and it can't do its own thing, crypto markets might be going down for the short term, but that doesn't change anything medium to longer term. With all the monetary stimulus, there's plenty of reasons to still be bullish. So let's just get out that fib retracement tool again. That golden zone that we know and love, if we can't hold the 50% fib again, is down here again around 7,800. So on the weekly chart, let's just have a look at that. It was all looking fairly healthy. We're still holding that 20 moving average. So very, very important weekly close tomorrow, or depending on when you're watching this video. But if this weekly candle closes with a wick or closes red below here, again, that's technical damage on the charts, which is making us look a little bit lower just in the short term. Overall, I think the May halving coming up, all the good news. We know that the hodlers, I've got the hodl t-shirt on today, we know that the hodlers and the whales have not moved their coins in 2 years. So there's no panic selling. Yes, price is going down because of what is happening globally, but really nothing to worry about. We've had a lot of these alts actually hold up relatively well. Really strong weeks back to back for Ethereum here when you look at the ratio, and we compare that to Bitcoin dominance. It's had a little bit of a bounce here at this key level, and it hasn't broken down yet. So this is a decision point whether Bitcoin is possibly going to act as more of a safe haven and alts are going to bleed out harder if we get that stock market crash, or we are going to lose this level and alts are going to outperform to the upside, and I think we'd have to be in an overall bullish market for alts to outperform. I don't see them outperforming if we have a big nasty sell-off. So guys, that is everything from me. Head over to nuggetsnews.com.au for more info on anything we do or to take advantage of that free $100 there. I hope you guys have enjoyed this episode. Thank you so much to everyone that is sharing these around with friends and family. Make sure you've subscribed, hit that little bell button so YouTube shows you all these videos, and I'll talk to you again soon. Cheers.